Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Monday, September 8th, 2025, and today we're making the case for breaking ground in the fall on next year's garden or garden expansion. We're talking about farming in a resort town with a lot of tourism and what I'm planning to play around with in the garden next year, so let's do it. All right, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had lovely weekends. It was very soccer-y for me as normal, lots of coaching. And, I've found that there is a new challenge with my voice that coaching in the evenings and then doing this in the mornings, it's a lot. So, if you're ever like, Jesse sounds a little rough, it's just my voice is a little coachy. Anyway, no surprises on that front. The weather was lovely and had the smell of fall and the feel of fall, which always love that. This week, I'm going to start to get our winter killed cover crops in. So that's kind of the biggest item on my list, but also still trying to get the fields full of as many vegetables as I can that make sense. And then also, of course, load those tunnels up for that late fall and early winter production. I feel pretty good about that this year. Like I've said before, we kind of pulled back a bit this season just to get this show established, but we feel like we found a pretty good rhythm, a groove, if you will. And I think we can put a bit more effort into the gardens next year. So I'm excited about that. Not going to go back to what we were doing a few years ago, but a bit more for sure. Also got 50 blueberry plants headed our way to plant, and so that should be fun. So loading up on fruit, loading up on gardens. Yeah, all the things. Also, no new theme song for today, but musicians, keep sending those in. Just record your version of the theme song and send it along to farmermike@notillgrowers.com to help us celebrate 1 year of the show, which I think is at the end of this month. So that's exciting. Can't believe I've been doing this for a year. Anyway, maybe you're not like me, and what if you do want to expand more of your gardens and open up new ground or open up a new garden in general? Well, what's on my mind now is that it is a great, if not the great time to start or expand gardens. The reason I say that is because starting or expanding gardens right now provides some benefits that are harder to pull off in the spring. For one, it's not as wet, so that's obviously helpful because wet ground you don't really want to work. But let's say you are going to go that one-time tillage route just to open up the ground and get the garden started so you can never really have to till it again, which can be the right call in compacted or depleted soils. The soil is still warm enough here in Kentucky, at least here in Zone 6B, to get some of those summery weeds to germinate, so they will be less of an issue in the spring. Also, after the soil is opened up, there is still time to plant a cover crop to lock it in place and enrich the soil over the winter, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. First, there are many ways to start a garden, and we have gone over probably all of them at this point, ad nauseum somewhere on this channel. I will link at least one good garden starting video in the show notes, and you can also read all about it in the Living Soil Handbook. I give basically every option I can think of for how to go about it in that book, starting with evaluating the soil conditions and locating your potential mulches, all of that stuff. But again, we share everything, so it's all on one of our videos somewhere. But the reason I like the fall for starting gardens is time. No matter how you're starting those gardens, starting in the fall gives you time to work with. So for example, let's say you have good compost access and want to go more of a deep compost mulch system route. By putting the weed barrier down and in the compost now, that allows the soil the entire winter time to gel and marry, so that planting in the early spring is really just straightforward because it's already ready to go. When you rush that process, say try to put down a deep composting system in the early spring with less than perfect compost, as I have tried more times than I would like to admit, the results are just not always that great. Sometimes the plant roots find themselves competing with decaying plant matter or compacted soil or paper mulch or whatever is in between the compost and the native soil, and it just slows the production down tremendously. Like, not all compost are going to be adequate for sustaining healthy plant production. So having access to that native soil can be really important. Starting a garden in the fall also gives you a chance to take your time and address the soil's needs. That may mean addressing compaction through broad forking the beds or, subsoiling if it's not too wet. It may mean adding some amendments and working those into the soil first. Whatever your conditions or deficiencies, it will take time to address them and for the soil to return to a farmable state. This is especially true in clay soils, I find, but it can be sandy soils. It can be any soils. So anyway, that's my little rant on starting or expanding planting gardens in the fall versus the early spring, and why it should be moved up your to-do list, especially while it's still warm, and any weed seeds that might get exposed can be either killed in the coming cold or cultivated out. I also do want to emphasize the option of a cover crop here, planting a winter cover crop following the rules of cover cropping, of course. This will really start to mobilize the nutrients and microbial populations for the next season, also help keep that soil in place for the winter. You will have to have a plan for terminating it, killing it, but cover crops are an excellent way to start out on a new plot, or for that matter, perhaps reclaim an old one. It's entirely possible some of you have gardens that, well, just got a little bit away from you this season. All good, it happens. Treating it like it's a new garden is sometimes the best way to reclaim it. Sometimes gardens get away from us because they were just not started right in the first place, so this could be your opportunity to do that. Late summer and early fall can be a great time for a fresh start. Anyway, yes, what say you? Is the fall your favorite time to start a garden? Spring, summer? Let me know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll discuss sliding scale CSA and farming in a resort town, BRB.
Hey guys, this is Danny's farm in southwestern Ukraine. We normally do chili peppers, but this year because of the war, we weren't able to start them. And so this gives us a focus on winter crops this year for the first time in our 9 years here in Ukraine. Slava Ukraine.
Today's episode of Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the virtual assistant built for farmers, helping CSAs scale sales, run error-free fulfillment, and deliver 5-star service. Whether you're at 100 members or 1,000, Farmhand helps you grow without burning out. You've heard us and our farmers right here on Growers Daily. Explore farmer wins and learn more at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. All right, if you, the listener or the viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Dylan Howell, who writes, quote, "Hey Jesse, my wife and I are starting our market garden, 5A, Donnelly, Idaho. We've already planted our outdoor cover crop and are about to start our winter planting in the tunnel. One question that we haven't really seen talked about too often is how to market a CSA to a resort town. The full-time population of our town is 250. The surrounding area is around 10,000 total full-time. There are many second homes/cabins in the area and around 1 million tourists per year. That's a lot of tourists. They're fairly evenly split between seasons due to boating/outdoors in the summer and snow sports in the winter. This creates a quite polarized economic condition, with around 30% of the full-time population being quite wealthy and around 30% of adults having yearly wages under $25,000. The typical tourists are quite wealthy, many of them from out of state. We'll be trying to diversify our sales channels as much as possible: CSA, restaurants, local stores, farm stands, etc. For the CSA, are there any tips on selling to a polarized and seasonal market? We're talking about trying to implement quote-unquote sliding scale pricing, as we both want to provide fresh vegetables to the local community, as well as hopefully make a bit of profit from the more wealthy crowd. We're also trying to figure out the best way to accommodate inconsistent schedules of the part-time residents, maybe using more of a farm credit type system where they can spend the credits when they're in the area and bank them when they're away. Sorry for the long ramble. Dylan and Jess, Gold Fork Farm, end quote. All right, so interesting questions here, y'all. Thank you. And unfortunately, there's no perfect answer, but I'll give you my general thoughts on this. First, it's nice that the tourism is spread out throughout the year like that. That's not always the case in resort towns, so that bodes well for you. A sliding scale could work, but unfortunately, not all people of wealth will be pleased to find out that they're paying more for the same thing as someone else. I mean, if more people thought like that, we probably wouldn't have so much poverty, but not saying it can't work. That will entirely depend on the clientele. It's just not going to be easy to sell it that way. Perhaps an alternative or additional option is to offer something like home delivery with a relatively inflated delivery cost. That way, those who can't afford it can perhaps pick up the share at the farmer's market or wherever you distribute, but those who can afford the fee can have it delivered. Obviously, that's a bummer for those who can't afford the fee, but could use the convenience. but it is more fair in the sense that the delivery is a very simple value add for you, especially in a smaller town, and that more wealthy people are going to go for that versus an arbitrarily higher cost. So the price of the CSA share stays the same for everyone, but perhaps the more well-to-do can add home delivery as a convenience in the same way that grocery stores offer delivery or pickup right outside of the store and those sorts of things. You could also potentially offer something like the culinary share, where the CSA every week is a little more dolled up with some additional specialty options that are a little bit more off the beaten path of, effectively some of the same products, but perhaps you add some edible flowers and more unique vegetables to make it a bit higher end, and then you charge a little bit more for it, package it, a little bit more neatly, that sort of stuff. One potential other option is to offer some sort of service industry or tourism industry discount, or whatever the appropriate term might be for the people who work in your area and don't earn what their clientele do. Or maybe it's a permanent residence of Donnelly discount, geared specifically towards those who live in the area year round, but don't have the money that the tourists do. Now, the credit thing is something we've used ourselves. We have a farm card that can be bought through Square online. Customers buy a card at a set amount from the website, like $100 gets you $105 worth of produce or something like that. And then they can use that and refill it however they want or whenever they want. That has been a great system for us at the farmers market, where those people could also get on the pre-order list. So we would send out a pre-order list every week, and then they could choose what they wanted, and we could prepackage it. And then that way that would guarantee things like summer lettuce, which we often ran out of. And then they could come, skip the line and pick it up at their convenience, directly from us, just kind of walk up and grab their bag. Super simple, and it offered multiple values to them. And then also it offered us a little bit of that CSA thing where we got paid up front. Square is what we use to get those cards. I'm sure there are other options. What I like about that in your situation is, with many of the clients being out of towners or coming in and out of town, they may not be as interested in investing in a full CSA if they're going to miss several weeks, but like you suggested, might be cool with a card like that it offers some of those other conveniences. Anyway, I hope there was at least something helpful in there. This is always going to be a perennial problem. CSAs are often, geared more towards a higher end clientele anyway. So there could also be the option of offering a share or a few shares to like a food bank or something like that to help with the people who may not be able to afford it. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk some of the things I plan to play around with in the garden next year. And we'll take your ideas on that as well. Be right back.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so around this time every year, I start to gather ideas and plan for what I want to give a whirl in the garden next year. This can be crops, this can be tools, it can be composting methods, new cover crops, all sorts of stuff, but I thought I would lay out some of what I plan to mess around with in the garden next year, and then you all can give me some of your ideas of what you think we should play around with. First, the thing that has been on my mind a lot over this last year of reading so much research on the subject is just the ubiquity of microplastics in plants and the air embedded in our bodies. Microplastics are absolutely everywhere at this point, and it's just getting worse. So I'm kind of a little bit tired of contributing to that. I want to sort of back away from that stuff. So in that way, there are two things that I really want to play around with more in the next year. That would be burlap and alternative packaging options. I've talked about the complicated nature of some of the alternative packaging in terms of health for the workers, and also how much do, for instance, compostable packages really ever compost and all that good stuff. But there are some options out there that I would like to take for at least a test drive to see how they go. On the burlap side, I'd like to try planting some crops, into burlap next summer and see how the moisture retention is, the weed suppression, and longevity of the material itself. I'm also interested in some of the ways in which it could be used as shade cloth or frost protection. So I might also play around with it in those instances as well. I'm also really enjoying the Sumi soaker system, the irrigation system that Diego Footer sent me from moderngrower.co. And I'd like to see if I could expand it a little bit and not only use it more in the fields, but potentially for some high tunnel use as well, in instances, at least when I'm not spraying tomato plants or cucumber plants where the leaves should really not get wet like that. But anyway, so I'd like to invest a little bit in that. And so I can, stop dragging my hoses and sprinklers around and get better coverage using less water. Now that sounds like an advertisement, but that is truly what I'm discovering so far, that the coverage is amazing. And I think there's a lot of potential for that system, but I'll kind of have to redesign some of my irrigation. So that should be fun. Now I will say it covers everything, including our paths. So if you are, like a drip tape user that just hits the bed tops, it will be a different level of irrigation and potentially irritation. But we like our paths to stay wet because we are not, trying to keep them clean. They literally have living plants in them. They're filled with plants. And so I'm happy to keep those plants healthy and building soil, for the beds that are next to them. I'm also going to go a little harder towards developing a few seeds that I like. So that would be the topper popper pepper and hopefully my candy onion down the line, as well as, that sweet cherry tomato I'm going to start playing around with. Who knows what will come of that. And more fruit. We're adding 50 blueberry plants this fall, as I said. We will have to replace some of the trees that I planted in the spring, I think, as well, but we'll see. We'll just see how those fared, because some of that area got a little out of control in the weed category. But hopefully some of those plants will bounce back and I don't have to do that, but we'll see. Also on the crops front, I really love teff, and I'm curious about ways in which I can utilize this cover crop in the summer, but maybe also as a winter killed cover crop that I can get to kind of be nice and thick and then die in those first frosts. Maybe try it a bit in the pathways as well. Maybe sometimes as a cover crop, maybe sometimes as a living mulch. I don't know. Still want to play around with it. Still need another season just with it under my belt to kind of get a feel for what it can do and what it can't do. And anyway, I'll talk more about teff, my experiences this year later on, because it hasn't quite ended. I've still got some teff experiments going on. So more on that later. What are you all gearing up for and planning to use next year? What new tools, new crops, new ideas? Let me know. What would you like me to try and report back on? You know that I'm not great at trials, but I can definitely give some insight on, did the tool work? I'm good at that. And we can develop a bit more of a budget to experiment with new tools so you all don't have to. I mean, part of the value of this show is that I can try stuff so that you all don't have to go out and waste your money and then find out it doesn't work for you. Anyway, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's it for this Monday. First, though, we're going to get a real quick word from our friends at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering you the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit rimmel.com to get growing. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is now officially a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. I know we're coming into the holiday season and you're going to start thinking about your taxes for next year. Yeah, think about kicking a little money over to No-Till Growers. There's information about how to do that in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of September, you get a shout out in the show. So big shout outs today to Amy Peary. Amy Peary. That's fun. All right, so in this week's story, I think it's important that we all understand that there are two main types of people who run for a political office. People who want power and those who generally want to help people. So when Amy decided to run for class president of her elementary school's 5th grade class, she wanted her classmates to understand that she was unequivocally the latter. She was in it for the people, for making a difference, and when she won that office, she carried through on that promise. She got recess extended 5 extra minutes on Mondays and Fridays, a hard-fought battle with the principal, I should say. She scored pizza and ice cream for the end of testing celebration. She solved several disputes among best friends that broke up, and most of them are back to talking. Everything was going swimmingly right up until the second to last day before school was to be adjourned for the winter break, when the new kid arrived. Who was this new kid? What was the problem? That is for tomorrow on Class Crown. See what I did there? It's could be clown, but I put the crown in there. Anyway. It's not what you think it is, but we'll get to that tomorrow. Thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.